Hello YouTube, it is your boy B3, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Today we are doing the long-awaited Invincible Compendium 2 from Image Comics. This is the big 3-volume collection of all 144 issues of Invincible, as well as tie-ins, which is pretty cool. 3 will probably be the very next one, because I cannot put it down. But I'm going to read you the back of the book real quick. The best superhero comic in the universe. Ever since Mark Grayson got superpowers, life has never been the same. As Invincible, he's fought the universe's most dangerous villains, graduated high school, got a girlfriend, 2 of them, and his father, the world's greatest superhero, Omni-Man, revealed himself to be an alien conqueror bent on taking over Earth. Since then, Invincible's been working for the Global Defense Agency, fighting their fights and saving the world in their name. Until now, Invincible can no longer follow their orders unquestioned. Now he finds himself up against the very organization he's been working for. And war looms on the horizon. Rated T14, collects issues 48 through 96 of the Eisner Award-winning series, plus Invincible Returns 1 and Astounding Wolfman 11. I will be reading all of Astounding Wolfman because it was awesome. Plus, you guys know I'm a big fan of monster heroes and stuff. Compendium 2 of Invincible. Robert Kirkman, writer. Ryan Ottley, penciler. Corey Walker, penciler, inker. You know, a lot going on with this book. Too much, even. Invincible and Eve do finally become a full item in this book, which is great. We see Invincible fall out with Cecil because there's going to be some spoilers in this, by the way. Cecil, instead of punishing the murderous Darkwing and the evil doctor that created the cyborgs, you know, turned one of his friends into a cyborg, he actually has a falling out with Cecil in the Department of Defense over these things because he's seeing things too much in black and white. And that's one thing I really love about this comic. It really makes you think. There are times in Invincible, through all 3 volumes, where you're like, wait, who's the bad guy? And things just get grayer and grayer as it goes along. Oliver, Invincible's brother, gets more powers and stuff. He starts doing some superhumaning, but he's a little cold to humans. You know, he does a couple murders. In fact, he murders those twins, which are actually 2 of my favorite villains, to be completely honest. I really like them. This volume is much darker than Volume 1 as well, I would like to tell you. Invincible gets a cool costume change with this like black and blue costume. I gotta say, I prefer the yellow, to be completely honest. He has to go to the future, and the future is like pretty wild because it's a lot. I can't say that without getting into Volume 3, really. Talk about the arc where he goes to the future, but it's pretty wild. Omni-Man, aka Nolan, tries to get some redemption. He becomes friends with Alan, our cycloptic orange alien. Why are all Cyclopses orange? Oh yeah, Ray Harryhausen. Every time you see an orange Cyclops, Ray Harryhausen. Yeah, but they also freed Battle Beast, and the 3 of them became sort of buds, sort of buddies, and we get this huge reveal that there are only about 50 Vulturemites, the big alien enemy of the book. There are only about 50 of them left in the entire universe. Turns out a disease nearly destroyed the entire population. Yeah, and there's only a few left, but they don't want the universe to know. And that kind of gives the forces against them an upper hand. We also get a book where Invincible tries to help Wolfman clear his name for his wife's murder. which was really good. God, I have to read the Wolfman book. I'm going to read all the spin-offs of Invincible, by the way. Tech Jacket, Guardians of the Globe, the Adam Eve Rex Explode stuff, Wolfman, all of it. Every single one of them, I'm going to read all of them, starting with Wolfman, which you can get in a single, complete collection. Adam Eve starts a business where Invincible protects power plants and stuff, since they're heavy targets of supervillains. There's also this energy absorbing and manipulating supervillain that targets Invincible, and it's a really, really sad story. It's kind of fallout from Omni-Man's betrayal. You know, we also get the return of Invincible's arch foe, Angstrom, I believe his name was, the big brain guy. We get to see an image of Spawn. That was fun. Nice little Spawn cameo for one panel. He doesn't say anything. It's not like Spawn's cameo in Ant. Remember when I reviewed Ant Volume 1 where it was like, hey, this whole issue is basically just, hey, look, Ant's with Spawn. No, it was just like one panel. You see Spawn fighting an alternate dimension Invincible because an army of evil Invincibles invaded and really destroyed the planet. The planet was pretty much destroyed. And they sort of were eventually able to defeat them, kind of, sort of, kind of. Excuse me. A lot of wild stuff going on. This is such a book. And then we also get the invasion of those face-hugger-esque things. They invade, and Invincible has to make the conscious choice to kill and all this stuff. And then Conquest, who is a psychopathic Viltrumite, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, comes to Earth and tries to kill Invincible. And he does seem to pretty much kill Adam Eve. And really just put the beat down on Invincible and young Omni-Man, boy Omni-Man, whatever Oliver was calling himself at the time. And all the Invincible corpses were turned into Reanimin. That's what those cyborgs are called. But yeah, so Conquest basically kills Adam Eve, but then her powers go into overdrive when she's almost near death, and she fixes herself. And she's usually not able to fix organic matter or manipulate it, which is very interesting. Conquest is quote-unquote killed, but then we find out that Cecil actually allowed Conquest to heal so he could interrogate him, but of course he's a full-blooded adult Viltrumite, so guess what, motherfucker? He just breaks out immediately and flies away. Causes a whole hell of a lot of grief. Invincible's mom gets a boyfriend, her first boyfriend since his father betrayed the planet. There's just so much going on. It's like earth-shattering disaster after earth-shattering disaster. But the book doesn't forget to be lighthearted and comedic sometimes. It still can do that. Omni-Man and Nolan, and Alan fly around the universe finding all the weapons and things that can defeat Viltrumites. And there are some pretty interesting ones. I just really love the world of Invincible. I really love it. We get a new villain called Dinosaurus. Every time I read his name, I think of that old stop-motion dinosaur movie. Dinosaurus! With a big old big old exclamation point at the end. And Dinosaurus is kind of like an eco-terrorist. He's a hyper-genius. He's so intelligent that it kind of overrides his emotions. And he does some stuff. Eve gets pregnant. That's right, Eve gets pregnant. One thing I love about Invincible is you come for superhero action, but you stay for like all the drama, all the melodrama. But even throughout the melodrama, there's still tons of hardcore superhero action. It's pretty wild, to be completely honest. Invincible makes the conscious choice to kill a man for the first time, which kind of fundamentally changes him, and he struggles with that, and it's very interesting to see. Invincible, I can't lie to you guys, Invincible is infinitely more interesting than any Marvel or DC character. He feels so real. He feels so real. It's like a real person. Superman doesn't feel real. Batman doesn't feel real. Even Spider-Man, who was made to be relatable, doesn't feel real. You know what I mean? And Superman, lots of them aren't supposed to feel real. They're supposed to be ideals to look up to. And that's good. I actually love heroes like that. Like the Superman right here. Superman's one of my favorite heroes of all time and one of my favorite characters in fiction. I love inspirational characters. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with relatable characters. This guy, it's like a real person. It's such a goddamn good book. We get our first look at Emperor Thrag, leader of all the Viltrumites and the strongest among them, because only the strongest among them can lead, and etc. I see some of the things that happened with the criminal that Invincible thought he reformed. His dad returns to Earth, and a lot of crazy stuff goes down. Remember the Flaxans? Those aliens that invaded in, like, issue 3? Well, every once in a while they return. And time in their dimension goes differently. It's much faster. So, when they're in the human dimension, they age rapidly, and they have to make technology to keep them from doing that in our dimension. And then in their world, if people from the Invincible dimension go there, they, like, barely age at all. We get a cool look at Tech Jacket. I think Tech Jacket has some... He's kind of like a Blue Beetle-esque character, power-wise. Actually, kind of personality-wise, too, because I feel like he's also... He's very young. He's Blue Beetle. he's basically Jamie Reyes Blue Beetle, to be completely honest. Invincible discovers that Conquest was not killed, and... Oh, wow. A lot goes down. Conquest really hurts Mark, Invincible. And Mark takes months to recover. And while he's doing that, his dad, Nolan, and his brother, Oliver, have to stay on the planet with him, where they eat bug monsters. And just... It gives Nolan time to spend with his son. Because Oliver is Invincible's half-brother, technically. He has an insectoid mother. And all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of war raging while they're on that planet. And there's just... It's so much great drama spliced with, like, Nolan and Oliver bonding. Just spliced with scenes of war. It's so interesting. The whole book is an emotional roller coaster, honestly. It's just so great. There's no such thing as a one-dimensional character in the entirety of Invincible. For the most part. Maybe, like, there are some kind of, like, background heroes and stuff in the books, mostly in Volume 1, that kind of seem that way, but your background characters are often one. Like, that's just a thing. If you flesh them out, then they're not background characters anymore. You see what I'm saying? Because to take the time to flesh them out would keep them on screen too much to be... You get what I'm saying. But there are spin-offs that actually do develop many of those characters more, which is very interesting. Oh, wow, though. There's this big assault. The home world of the Viltrumites is destroyed intentionally. Oliver loses an arm and a jaw. Everyone almost dies. Thaddeus, who was an older one that betrayed them long time ago, before Nolan ever did, he dies in combat with Thrag. Thrag rips his head from his body. Thrag should never have left any of them alive. I like when the big villains in this book leave characters alive. It's not because, I'm living your life because I'm confident you'll never come up to defeat me, you know, bullshit like that. They have like actual reasons, which is very interesting. I'm not going to tell you all the characters' reasons for doing everything because I want you to read these books yourself. I know lots of people come to these reviews to hear the main plot points and stuff because they can't afford to read a book or something like that, or they just need to read something to fill in the gaps in another book they're reading, because this is a shared universe with Guardians of the Globe and Wolfman and etc., as I already mentioned. Lots of crazy stuff going on. Alan actually becomes the leader of the Coalition of Planets, which is kind of like, you know, Starfleet kind of thing. You know what I mean? It is absolutely wild. So the Vulturemites, after the war, kind of go to Earth, and they're like, let's make a truce. I'll have my people breed among yours, breed among the Earthlings, because it turns out Earthlings are like perfectly compatible genetic-wise, which kind of makes sense, because their species look exactly the same. And there's this big truce where the Vulturemites end up breeding with people on Earth. And Mark is like, we can't allow that to happen, because if we do, they'll just eventually wait out their time, make an army once they've had enough babies, and do stuff. And then Nolan's like, no, I'm confident Earth will change them. It's very interesting. A lot of them are at odds, and Invincible was gone for a very long time. A very, very long time. He was gone off Earth months. 5 months, I think. He comes back. Eve has gained a lot of weight, you know, looks like a normal person. She's very depressed. She's been without him, been living with her parents, who are awful. Her dad, you're supposed to hate him. And her mom is, oh God. The worst thing about Adam Eve's parents is that they both remind me of mine, and I hate that. Because my dad is also like a sexist bigot, and my mom is also constantly making excuses for him and guilting me. It's insane how much I identified with that stuff. Nolan and okay, so Invincible's parents get back together. Invincible's best friend and friend who has turned into a cyborg, they come out as gay and they start dating, and it's actually very nice. And there's a lot of character progression there with his best friend, because the reason he was being such a jerk and stuff in Volume 1 is because he was kind of running from himself. Very interesting. I would have liked to see that story develop more, but he's always been kind of a side character. Invincible goes through another costume change. Back to the original. He just missed it. Went back. All good. Dinosaurus gets free. And we find out Eve had an abortion while Mark was away. She couldn't raise the baby by herself. She wasn't ready for a baby even if Mark was there. She got an abortion. He's so perfect. I would date the shit out of Mark. He's incredible. Oh my God. He is so understanding, and he's a good guy. He like has his flaws, but that's what makes him a character, you know? Being too perfect can make you less interesting. It can, you know? That's why most of my favorite Power Rangers kind of aren't from the Mighty Morphin show. Everyone says they're the best ones, but they also have like no real flaws, so pretty insane. Eve can't, she's very insecure about her weight. Dinosaurus attacks, and he destroys Las Vegas with a ton of bombs. And just turns the place where Las Vegas was into glass. And he was like, you don't understand, this city isn't sustainable. It's an oasis, it's an unnatural oasis in the middle of this desert. And he was listing all the reasons that Las Vegas was just destroying the environment. And he was like, once I've destroyed this city, I can... he was like, once I destroy this city, I can build solar panels here. I can build a huge solar farm that will power the entire country for free. Without hurting the environment at all. The sun here is perfect. And etc., etc. There are lots of smaller stories that I'm skipping and stuff, by the way. Robot and Monster Girl. Because remember, I said they went... Did I say they went? They went to the dimension with all the bug people, where they age quickly. They went there to stop them from invading, because decades go by on the bug world in a couple months. So they just keep improving their technology, and eventually they will be strong enough to defeat the world of Invincible, and they'll do it quickly. Invincible kind of starts to want to do things a different way. He's like, hey, I'm not making much of a difference punching villains. I'm not making a difference punching villains. I need to do something else. And he starts trying to like reform. There are a lot of reformed villains in this book, all 3 volumes. And one of my favorite things that media can do is reform a villain. I love watching villains reform. Kylo Ren, Loki, Vegeta. I love reformed villains. Give me more. But Cecil builds a solar farm on the glass section of the desert where Las Vegas used to be. And it has double the output of a wooden solar farm its size should have, because there is an engineer from a side story that I didn't mention who figures out a way to get double the yield from them, which is very clever. And Invincible's like, Dinosaurus was right. So he busts Dinosaurus, the guy who blew up an entire city, killing so many, busts him out of jail, and Invincible becomes a fugitive. And what he does is Dinosaurus uses his intelligence and stuff and says what they need to fix and how they need to fix it, and then Invincible kind of reins him in. Invincible's like, okay, let's find a different way to do it that doesn't hurt people. And it works for a while. We see lots of stuff on other planets, and Alan, our cycloptic alien friend, decides to use the virus that destroyed the Viltrumites on Earth. But since Viltrumites are so genetically similar to Earth, it will almost certainly kill the entire human population as well. And Oliver's with Alan, even though he is that he's Viltrumite and raised by humans, which is very interesting. A lot of stuff goes on. Thrag gets involved. The Guardians of the Globe get involved. There's a lot of fighting. Invincible gets infected with the virus and almost dies. And while that's happening, genetic samples are taken from him that show he is the heir to the throne. Turns out his dad was the lost son of an emperor that Thrag had been looking for. Thrag was assigned to actually lead the people until the lost heir was found. The lost heir was freaking Nolan. It was Omni-Man. And so now Invincible's the next heir. And when Thrag finds this out, he breaks the truce trying to kill Invincible. Also, Bulletproof takes over the mantle of Invincible for a bit while Invincible is away so that he can help Adam Eve with her business. Because when Invincible's running around doing space stuff, which, let's face it, is like half the stuff he does in this volume, Invincible Inc. is kind of going under, because Adam Eve is sending lower-level superhumans that are working for her in, and all the companies are like, no, we paid for Invincible. So Bulletproof puts on the costume, and he just, since he has kind of a super speed and similar powers, and etc., he just keeps his distance so they don't notice that he's a... so they don't notice he's a completely different race, as well as species. Pretty wild stuff. Dinosaurus actually saves Mark. Who, once again, Mark is invincible. A lot of crazy stuff happens. Well, we start to get lots of backstory on Bulletproof, which is very interesting. I didn't expect Bulletproof to get extensive backstory, to be completely honest, but it happens. Mark loses his powers for a bit. So much happens. Like, I know this video is long, but there's a lot to talk about. There's so much to talk about. that I can't even stand it. There's like this big divide between Monster Girl and Robot, who now goes by Rex, by the way. Big divide between them because of what they did in the other dimension. They said they were gone for 12 years because when they arrived back, they had aged about 12 years and they were adults, kind of in their early to mid... yeah, in their 20s. But they were actually there 1,000 years. They just aged very slowly. And it's quite a story where Robot kind of took over the whole planet and ushered in a new era of peace, but to do that, he thought he had to commit genocide against a certain genetic line and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then, get this, you know, the bug people from that dimension? One of them shows up with Monster Girl's powers. Her son shows up, and he calls her father because she had sex with one of the women after she had Rex locked up, because she led a coup to overthrow him when he was becoming a dictator, and was a dictator. She found comfort in them, had sex with them, but she had sex with them in her monster form, because her monster form has a penis. Her monster form is a dude. I love her power set, by the way. It's very interesting, as well as the de-aging effect, which was fixed with a belt that reversed the process. See, she was de-aging, but as the more she used her power, but as she de-aged, the monster form became stronger and stronger. But now it does the opposite. Energy is drawn from the monster form, and it compensates and allows her to age naturally. Of course, doing that makes the monster a little bit weaker every time she uses it, though. So that's the drawback. That's just it. That's the drawback. But Mark, while he's recovering, leaves Dinosaurus alone. And without Mark to guide him, Dinosaurus starts to do something terrible. And that's where the volume ends. Ooh, you gotta wait till the next video. I know this was long. I'm very sorry. This was almost 30 minutes. Probably it's gonna pass 30 minutes after I do my closers. Final thoughts on Invincible Compendium 2 from Image Comics. Robert Kirkman, one of the greatest comic writers of all time, in my opinion. I mean, you'd have to be if he wrote the greatest comic of all time. Not only is Invincible my favorite comic series I've ever read, but probably my favorite book series I've ever read. One of the best things I've ever read, period. I haven't even seen a single episode of the show yet, but I know it's going to be amazing because it just has to be. It's a fantastic comic. If you only read one comic book series in your entire life, read Invincible. The cheapest way to read Invincible is the compendiums on Kindle. Yes, you should support your local comic shops. If you're going to read it single issue, support your local comic shop. If you're going to read it individual volumes, of which there are several, support your local comic shop. If it's not a comic shop, bookstore, if you don't have any of those, I understand. But the reason I got it on Kindle is because the compendiums are easily the cheapest way. But the physical compendiums are more than triple the price than the Kindle version. And I have heard that the physical compendiums do not physically hold up. They are so thick that they can't stay bound, and they fall apart. I have heard that many times for all 3 volumes, which is another reason I didn't get them physically. I try to get books physically if I can. I really do. You should see the amount of physical books I have. It's insane. I actually had to sell tons of them just for space. I've seriously sold off half my comics, and they still take up, like, they're just stacked in chairs. There's so many. I don't have room for them. But I just, digital was the best choice this time, storage-wise, because it's 144 issues plus tie-ins, so that's a lot. That's really a lot. But this is an incredible book. Read it however you can. If digital is what you have to do, digital is what you have to do. And let's face it, books are going digital. They just are. It's a future we can't run from. That being said, you should support your local comic book stores while you still can. So that is it. Thank you all very much for your support. Invincible is perfect in every way. I love the art. I love the writing. I love everything about it. So that's it. Thank you all very much. Once again, I can't say it enough, and I'll see you all next time.